to be here. I mean, the fact that they could pull off this conference is just remarkable. I'm so impressed with everything about it, starting with all you people that came. Thank you for that. So I've just finished a book called Aaker on Branding, and in that I sort of collected 40 or 50 branding concepts that I think are going to help people going forward, organize them into 20 principles. And for today, I picked out the four most important in terms of managing firms and brands in the next 10 years. So the first one is this idea of subcategory competition, which I talked about this morning. The idea that real growth, with rare exceptions, comes only when you do big innovation, creating new subcategories, and then make those subcategories win, build barriers for competitors. So that's the first one. The second is the whole idea is brand as an asset. I think the winning firms in the next 10 years will be those that accept the philosophy and act on the philosophy that brand is an asset. That brands have equity. We know they're worth somewhere between 15 and 75% of the whole value of the whole business. And even 15% can be a huge number. And I was sitting in a conference in Austin, Texas. I don't know if, Phil, you were at that conference or not, but in 1988, we were the first conference on brand equity. Were you there? Anyway, we were struggling. You know, what is brand equity? How do you measure it? How do you manage it? And little do we know how much influence that has. For those people that adopt that philosophy, it's changed who does marketing, it's changed what marketing does, and it's changed how marketing is measured. Just some perspective. In 1933, advertising manager for Camay soap at Procter & Gamble named Neil McElroy wrote a 4-page memo dictating how brands should be managed. He was very frustrated because Procter & Gamble was putting their resources into another soap called Aaker. 4-page memo. And actually at that time there was an edict at Procter & Gamble, you can only write 1-page memos. He wrote a 4-page memo. And that created the brand management system that's been adopted all around the world. And a characteristic of it, it really emphasizes tactical marketing things. It emphasizes being run by middle management, and it emphasizes sales as the short-term measure. And if you buy in brand as an asset, that all changes. First of all, it changes who does marketing. Instead of middle management, now, for those firms that accept the philosophy, it's top management. And now, we have a marketing person at the executive table, dealing with strategy, driving strategy. It's called the CMO, or the Senior Vice President of Marketing, but he's at the table. Very different. Changes what marketing does. Marketing is now involved in strategy. And marketing brings a lot to the table. It's very good at customer insights. So Procter & Gamble, Phil talked about anthropological research. Procter & Gamble believes in that. They did a study of laundry, how people do laundry. And they found that housewives thought it was confusing. You know, cold water, hot water, high efficiency, softeners, brighteners. It's just confusing. It's messy. And some have to lug around a heavy detergent box. So they developed the pods, which are little pills that does everything. You don't have to think, you don't have to carry something around, it's just a little pill. But it comes out of customer insights. Segmentation. McDonald's have to worry about breakfast, they have to worry about women, retired people, people that want healthy options. And that segmentation drives the kind of product they have. When Hyundai wanted to turn around their brand in America, the value proposition that they needed to respond to was quality and styling. And they did that, and they did some communication things, and they did turn around that brand. Right now, in the US, 35% of the population would consider a Hyundai. They're relevant to Hyundai. It was practically zero a few years ago. So the point is that marketing has always been good at customer insights. They've always done segmentation. They developed it 50 years ago. They've always been worried about the value proposition. But from a tactical point of view, you know, how can we stimulate a buy purchase? How can we segment so the advertising is more effective? What value proposition do we put forth? All tactics. But now these are strategic issues that marketing is doing. And instead of short-term sales, we measure marketing in terms of brand equity, perceptions, visibility and credibility, which are the core of brand relevance, which I talked about this morning, and loyalty. All things that have a long-term perspective. Well, Phil, you can probably add to this, but in my view, there's at least three things that have transformed business that have come out of marketing in the last century. Mass marketing, the marketing concept, market segmentation, and I think we have to add brands as assets to that list. As something that is, for those companies that have adopted that philosophy, change business. The third idea is what I call customer sweet spots. Now, among other things, we would like a brand building program to create visibility, energy, likability, relationships beyond transactions, and most of all, social media activity. That's sort of the be-all and end-all right now. So think about it. When marketing the budget gets displayed, it's usually all about communicating the offering. It's all about sort of convincing them that this brand is better than an opposing brand. It's about, you know, making the loyal people just a little bit more loyal. And think about it, all those things, they don't attract attention. They can't break through. They don't actually get any energy. They don't get you liked more. They don't get visibility, because the sad reality is people are not that interested in your offering or your brand. They're just not. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. So there's an alternative. You instead look at what the customer is interested in. I call it their sweet spot, their interests, their activities. And you become an active partner in some program that shares an interest with that sweet spot. So let me give you a couple of examples. John Deere, who was it? Somebody, one of the speakers this morning talked about being on the board of John Deere. Anyway, John Deere, 120 years ago, had the same instinct. They said, we're not going to be in the business of selling tractors, we're going to be in the business of improving farming, and we're going to come out with a quarterly magazine called The Furrow that's going to talk about insecticides, talk about how you plow straight, going to talk about accounting because you have to run a business. It's going to talk about rural lifestyle. All about what farmers are interested in. Today, there's 200 million people that are devout readers of The Furrow. And again, that's a lot more than would read advertisements about tractors. Pampers, instead of talking about their product, they talk about baby care. So they have the go-to site for baby care. Again, something that their core customers are really interested in, passionate about. So they go to the site and they can talk to others, they can talk to experts, they can read programs and so forth. And so that's an example of responding to a customer's sweet spot. Now those two things are an example of what I would call content marketing. And you're going to hear in a few minutes about content marketing, and we'll see how his judgment lines up with mine. But that's content marketing. You're building a content they're interested in. But this customer sweet spot idea is broader than that. So Avon realizes their market is interested in breast cancer. They're active people. So they have the Avon Walk for Breast Cancer. It's been going on for almost 25 years. Raised $640 million for breast cancer. And it really involves the audience. Enormous energy, enormous visibility for Avon, enormous likability for Avon, and social, it's built into social media. And another is Red Bull. They have 100 events that are sort of off the wall. I mean, they had Felix Baumgartner jump out of a balloon 24 miles over the earth. 10 million people saw it live. 35 million have seen it so far. They have a contest where you have to build your flying machine. You jump off a deck and fall into the water. They've done 35 of those. So you think about how this sweet spot thing does all those things, and it has a much better chance than conventional communication. Well, finally, silo coordination. I talked a little bit about this morning, and the reality is that we live in a silo world. There's product silos, country silos, functional silos, and they basically, in most organizations, too much can be described as in competition and in isolation. Silo world has worked really well over the years since it was started by Alfred Sloan back in the 20s, but doesn't work anymore. People want silo-spanning offerings. We need marketing programs like the World Cup sponsorship that scale across the organization. We want clear brands with clarity, and when the silos each run with a brand in a different direction, it creates confusion. If we get a good idea in the organization, we need to leverage it, scale it, but if there's isolation, that won't happen. And we have a misallocation of resources because the powerful silos get all the money. So I did a study. I talked to 50 CMOs around the world, and I asked them, what are your silo problems and what works? What do you do about them? And there was 2 findings. The first is that anything you can do to foster cooperation and communication will be helpful. It'll break down and reduce the silo problems. So one way to do that is with teams. You know, like the Chevron Texaco Global Brand Council or the MasterCard World Cup Task Force. Brings people together not only for makes some task that needs to be done feasible, but it also opens up channels of communications and cross-silo relationships. You can reward collaboration, like IBM, in fact, measures collaboration excellence for individuals and rewards it. You can reward the whole organization instead of silos. De-emphasize the silo performance as part of the reward system. And you can engage in all kinds of cross-silo events. The second finding was that the CMO office, instead of engaging in centralization and standardization, which is the instinct, it's far better and far more effective to engage in some non-threatening roles that can accomplish virtually the same purpose. So you can be a facilitator. I mentioned this morning how Nestle has these centers of excellence around Hispanic, mom and kids, Walmart, and other things that have a common interest across silos. So silo people will, from strategy and research, will come in and engage in these conversations. And it's completely non-threatening. You can be a service supplier, like BP Central Marketing Group was the go-to place for segmentation studies at BP. Because the first ones they did were so impactful, so useful, so informative that others were lined up to do it. And you become a strategic partner like the Frito-Lay Central team does in working with the brand teams to develop good brand visions and programs. So, but all these things, facilitator, service supplier, strategic partner, they all get you involved in the silos at a strategic level. So you can start communicating, you know what, remember the Nestle CEO talked this morning about an important part of his job was to be there to sense things that needed to be communicated, to sense opportunities for programs that could be leveraged, and but all these kinds of things, facilitator, service supplier, and strategic partner, they all give you a chance to do that because you're involved in the strategy. You not only see it, but you're part of it. So that's my top four. I think that the winning businesses and winning brand builders of the next decade will understand subcategory competition, the concept that brand is an asset, and brand building is not just tactical. Customer sweet spots, we want to communicate not just our brand and our firm, we want to be involved in what customers are interested in. And then silo coordination. Find ways, without blowing up the organization, to generate cooperation and communication.